Hi, this is Jonathan from Radio Tokyo, and it is Friday, and we have some fun and amazing things to talk about. At least I do. I don't know about Nick. Um, yeah, episode 2 of us finally having come back for nearly 2-year break, and it's great. It's wonderful. It's fun, and I'm ready to talk about some. See, what did we say we were going to talk about, Nick? In-game, I think was one thing, wasn't it?
It's only like the biggest geek comic book thing ever, so I think we should talk about it.
Well, technically it's not because this year is Batman's 80th anniversary.
Well, until Batman makes $2 billion off of a movie, then it's still not as big.
See, I would argue that it's bigger because Batman's 80. And here's what's funny. Not only was yesterday my parents' wedding anniversary, also the 75th anniversary of the landings at Normandy, France. Batman is 5 years older than that. He was 5 when we invaded Europe to start beating the Nazis. Yay, Batman, for being old!
And I'm pretty sure Batman was there on D-Day doing things too.
He probably was, because Captain America most certainly was. Captain America was punching Nazis left and right.
I actually saw this really cool tweet about how Robert Downey Jr. is using his fortune to try to save the world. Chris Evans is fighting Nazis. And Mark Ruffalo is big on going green.
It is I know what you're talking about because I read, I forget where it was at, but it was talking about Robert Downey Jr. And apparently the way that he announced it was very much like in, I think it was it Iron Man 2 or 3, where he does the memory thing with his parents. Was that 2 or 3?
I think it was 3. Or that might have been Civil War. I can't remember right now.
I'm pretty sure it was just a standalone movie. I don't remember. It's been quite a while since I've seen any of the standalone movies, so I honestly can't tell you whether that's what it was or not. But it seems like it was. It really does.
It's been a while since I've seen the Iron Man movies, but yeah, like I'm had how long ago did you see Endgame, and how many times did you see it?
I saw Endgame at least 3 times. That is probably the most I've seen any movie in the theater ever. It's 3 times,
and it fully deserved that. I mean, it honestly, and I mean, besides all the hype and everything, I don't know if we'll ever have a movie experience like that in our lifetimes again.
Honestly, I think that may have been this current generation's version of Star Wars. I really do.
I mean, I love Star Wars to death, and I understand how important it was for the time. But I feel like Endgame is even bigger in a way, because no movie ever has had this much build up to it. If you like, how many movies built up to this?
22? I think 22 or 23. No, wait. I think Endgame was the 23rd, wasn't it?
I think you might be right. 20. That means there are 22 movies building up to this. Now, I'm sure not everyone saw all 22, but I mean, I know lots of people did. But can you think of anything that would be able to rival that in the near future or future? I mean, DC could have, if
Other than
it
like
had.
a horror movie franchise, probably not. And I'll be honest. I want to give a shout out to James A. Janice on the Dead Meat channel on YouTube. If you haven't ever watched his videos, go watch him. He goes through old horror movies, well, old and new, and he does a thing called the kill count with them. They're very entertaining videos, but the only thing I can think of that might have caused that kind of sensational reaction is probably a horror movie. Like a Friday the 13th or something like that. It's something of that level that's got a fandom. The Saw movie certainly did, kind of, but I am not quite certain that any of those actually reached the level of excitement over Endgame. I really am not. In fact,
And
I sincerely doubt that they did.
and even with horror movie franchises like that, they're not built the way that Endgame can build itself. Endgame is it's such a shared universe. It's such all the pieces play a part in all the other pieces, and it was so cool to watch. And I actually was watching some videos about this. About how a lot of people think that this has been planned from the start by Disney and Feige and everyone, but it really wasn't. There were a lot of changes that were made along the way, and it was more something they realized that they could do than it was the original plan for all of this.
That seems really likely because if you think back, okay, this thing just is the first one I'm thinking of. The very first time that we see Natasha Romanoff, I don't think that there was the intent for her to become how she wound up in Endgame. I'm not going to spoil it just
No,
yet. We are
you're
entirely going to spoil the movie,
you're
but
actually true about that. The original intent was for Wasp to be the female representative on the Avengers.
which is fine. I'm great with that. But the very first time, we see her, um, Scarlett Johansson was what 22, I think, at the time. Young, stunningly gorgeous. Um,
She still is.
yeah, she is. But I'm not talking about Scarlett Johansson in particular. I'm talking about the way Natasha is portrayed at the time. Like I said, young, stunningly gorgeous, intelligent, was a model, and Tony Stark is he fucking Googles her. Like he looks her up on the internet and finds out she was a model, and he's flipping through her pictures and stuff, and he looks Pepper, and he's something like, did you ever model in wherever he says, and she's like kind of surprised that I think at the point that she was introduced, Tony and Pepper were kind of obviously going to get together, although there was some strain there. And then you have,
They
Natasha walk in and she flips Happy like because okay. Have to back up for a second. They had been doing personal training like boxing and MMA type stuff in a ring, like a boxing ring that Tony somehow has in his house. And she
it,
walks
it
in and needs like his thumbprint. And Happy calls her up in the ring and she's finding him and she flips over and is back on her feet before Happy even realizes what's happened. And Tony Stark is like, I want one.
which is just it was a really great thing because it really portrayed how it really portrayed Tony Stark, and it really gave her this moment of where you're like, wow, she is really amazing.
Yeah, because okay, unless you're a comic fan, you're probably not going to recognize the name Natasha Romanoff. Just the average viewer is going to be like, oh wow, she's cute, she's redheaded, mm, 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 and that's kind of part of her appeal as a character. You're supposed to view her that way initially, because she's supposed to, like, that's part of the whole I'm a spy, and she's able to completely disarm people just by looking and acting a certain way, and that's very well done, and it's wonderful that we have her go from this demure, quiet, pretty girl, um, I can easily become part of your organization, to being the badass that she winds up being later on in the franchise. And that's why I think that's was the original goal, was just to have her, be kind of an agent, an agent of Shield that just snuck around and was just there. And I think there were a lot of other characters that I almost said Blizzard, but Disney and Kevin Feige may have decided they wanted to do that same thing with.
And it was actually a lot of the contract disputes early on, which sounds silly to think of now, but a lot of the contract disputes that they had with actors early on is why they went in certain directions with Warhammer and oh god, what was the original actor that played him? I can't think of his name.
Don't worry, nobody does.
No, he's a really good actor. Like I actually like him, but
I know. I'm just being snarky to be snarky because it was. And now you're gonna make me wonder what his damn name was. Why do you do that?
because that's my job.
It is your job. It is your job. But um anyway, before we get sidetracked trying to remember his name, yeah, that is part of the whole storyline, because he didn't seem to gel, and then we got Don Cheadle.
Terrence Howard.
Yes, thank you, Terrence Howard. And as we all know, Don Cheadle is amazing.
He is one of the most.
Everybody loves Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle is one of the most underrated actors that exists. I love Don Cheadle.
I think he is. But his show on Showtime that he's been in, like I forgot the name of it off the top of my head, is great. And if you ever get the chance to watch it, I would check it out, because Don Cheadle really is a great actor. He's great.
Like, seriously, I can't think of one thing that Don Cheadle's been in that I would not at least enjoy somewhat watching. Like, he is.
I don't think there is anything like that.
He is such a great actor, and he's one actor I really wish got more attention. But yeah. But anyways, Endgame was amazing. It was spectacular. I mean, it wasn't perfect because no movie's perfect, but it was about
excuse me, sir.
It was
Warcraft was perfect.
I disagree, but it was as perfect. It was as close as perfect as it could be.
Warcraft was perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. Don't ever blaspheme again.
Right. Anyways, but seriously.
Also, no, wait. I have to say this. I absolutely have to say this. And if I don't, I will just die tomorrow. I cannot believe I did this. I very recently unsubscribed from CinemaSins. A while back, they posted a video, and I questioned why it ever existed. It was everything wrong with Batman Mask of the Phantasm. Ask literally any Batman fan, and they will happily tell you that is the best Batman movie. It's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. It's great. It's amazing. Wonderful story. Great voice acting. Beautifully done. It's perfect. Way better than Christian Bale. And as much as I actually like Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, no. Batman Animated Series' movie this one's it's perfect. It's perfect, and it pisses me the fuck off that Jeremy at CinemaSins did a video where he found things wrong with it, and I'm like, okay, it's fine. He's a jackass for thinking there's things wrong with this movie. I'll live. Followed that up with everything wrong with The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I said, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to pick. It's fighting words, to pick apart movies like that. And then the other day, like the final last straw, was everything wrong with Bumblebee. Unsubscribe. I made it 40 seconds into his video, and I unsubscribed from the channel because of that shit.
I think the problem he has is he ran out of bad movies to find things wrong with. So he had to start finding good movies to find things wrong with. He has a hard job.
Hard job, my ass. He's worth $6 million. And I found this out because I love the Birdman on YouTube. He's great. He does everything wrong with CinemaSins, everything wrong with videos. He's hilarious. Go subscribe to him because he's better than CinemaSins. And sorry, the whole but CinemaSins is parody. No, he's not parodying things. He actually makes the Birdman points this out. Jeremy at CinemaSins will quote unquote send something that he likes, and then he'll find something that is a repetition of something he's already given a little sin to or whatever, and it's stupid. And all he's doing is trying to find a way to make his videos be 10 minutes long or longer because he can get more ad revenue that way. And if he's saying, funny things, like, for example, they did a review of the original Aladdin, and he was talking about, the song Arabian Nights. It's hotter than hot in a lot of good, a lot of ways, or something like that. I don't remember the lyrics. And he's like, well, in case you're wondering about it, they're talking about sex. They're talking about sex in a kid's movie. Yes. Neat. Cool. Who cares? It's a kid's movie. They're making jokes about sex in a kid's movie. This is a guy who regularly references his penis and his college girlfriend's vagina on these things with kids' movies. Really, Jeremy? Really? And you wonder why I'm subscribed to you after like 6 years of being subscribed?
See, at first I thought you were being just a little bit petty and silly, but after you brought that up, now I'm kind of like,
Well, see, it is petty and silly because the 3 movies that I were the nail in the coffin for me. But I had long since stopped watching CinemaSins videos, primarily because I love watching the Birdman's review of them, because he points out everything that CinemaSins says that is stupid, like Jeremy talking about his dick. Who wants to hear a 40-something-year-old man talk about his penis while reviewing a movie?
Not me.
Who cares? I don't. I really don't. And I'm not saying this to trash on Jeremy because, sure, he's worth $6 million. That's great. I wish I was. I wish we had as big of an audience as he did. But that's fine. I'll live.
That is our goal now. To be worth $6 million.
Yes, it is.
Anyway. So what were we saying before?
Wait. While we're on YouTube, while we're discussing YouTube, I want to talk about something else that affects everybody. And I don't know if you're aware of what's been going on, are you?
I sort of, kind of looked into it a little after you brought it up the other day, but I'm not exactly sure.
The Vox AdPocalypse. It seems like every other year or so, there's some kind of AdPocalypse thing on YouTube. creators get demonetized. Hell, our channel was demonetized because we had less than 1,000 subscribers. So even though this is my personal channel that I made into the channel for our podcast, and I've been a YouTube partner for 10 years, we're no longer able to monetize the shows, which is why you should go to our Patreon and donate. But it sucks because that was just after they promised more ad revenue. Was going to be available because of YouTube Red and then YouTube Music and YouTube TV, which has got like 60 shows that are on it that you can watch on Hulu and Netflix. And you could even pirate them for free. But yeah, it's annoying to be demonetized. Excuse me. But this AdPocalypse is apparently the entire fault of Carlos Maza, who writes for Vox. For years now, he has been harassed openly by Steven Crowder. And I want to say right off the bat, I like Steven Crowder. I think he's funny. I don't like every joke he makes, and I don't like every comment he makes. Okay? Plain and simple. It's easy to understand that I'm saying that. I don't particularly care for what he calls Carlos Maza, because he calls him, and if we were monetized, we'd be demonetized for what I'm about to say, but he calls him a faggot, and he calls him a lispy queer. That's not okay. You shouldn't be calling someone that. And Carlos Maza put up with it for 2 years, and in his own words, he said that he did not want to go to his bosses at Vox because he didn't want to be called a liability to the company. Okay? And finally, it got to the point where he just began flagging every video that Steven Crowder had, and YouTube responded to him and said that they had reviewed the videos and they removed Steven Crowder from the partner program, but the videos were not going to be taken down because they did not violate YouTube's ad policy. And part of excuse me, well, not the ad policy, but just the harassment policy in general. And he quoted it back when he initially brought it up 2 days ago. I'm talking about Carlos Maza. When he brought it up, he says, using racial, homophobic, or sexist epithets on their own would not necessarily violate any of our policies. So just like me mentioning it, what he's been called just now, that's fine. I'm referencing it. However, when you turn that on somebody, like if I were to call you whatever name I want to, can't do that. Okay? And Carlos Maza tweets, what value does YouTube think racist and homophobic epithets add to the platform? What possible rationale can it have for carving out an exception for epithets? Who does that kind of speech benefit? Basically, what YouTube decided to do was, like I said, remove Steven Crowder from the partnership program, which means he can no longer monetize his videos. They have not removed his channel. They have not removed any videos of his. They are not allowing him. Well, they're not preventing him from showing up in search results. The algorithm is fine. It's finding no faults with his videos at all. And what YouTube has publicly stated in response to this is that they will allow him to become a partner again if he stops selling merchandise on his channel. So he can't have a Patreon to donate to him. He can't sell his Mug Club mugs or shirts or anything, and they're fine with it. And the reason I started off saying that I like Steven Crowder and that I think he's funny is because I do. I genuinely do think he tells some funny jokes, but there is a line to cross. And the best way I can explain it is, for example, a rape joke. I've made off-color comments for I shouldn't have made it. I deeply regret ever having done it. But George Carlin put this in a certain way. He says, you can joke about anything you want to. It's how you phrase it. Like a joke, even about something like that, has got to be so outlandish that it becomes humorous. And he says, I can prove it to you. Imagine Porky Pig raping Elmer Fudd. That's outlandish. It's crazy. And when he said that in his show, people laughed about it. Calling someone a lispy queer or a faggot for 2 or 3 years straight or whatever, and not even making it outlandish to where it's obviously not a joke, that's openly violating YouTube's policies. And I don't think that's cool. I really don't. I honestly think that all those videos ought to be demonetized, and the ones where he does that should be removed from YouTube. And I don't know any other creator who would just. Well, before I say that, there are some who do think that Carlos Maza is entirely wrong for doing this because he's an enemy of freedom of speech and yada yada yada. No, he just doesn't think that you ought to be able to bully people on the internet, which is not freedom of speech. It is hate speech. YouTube clearly defines what hate speech is. And Steven Crowder is causing harm to Carlos Maza. He's causing him problems at work. He's gotten Carlos Maza death threats. You know, the shit's not funny, and YouTube, at some point in time, needs to step up. Especially because there are a lot of other content creators, Cypher at Cynical Historian, who, if any of y'all read my blog, I've been doing like a long form response to one of his videos. He's had videos demonetized because of what he talked about in them. Other creators who do educational content of YouTube have had their videos flagged and demonetized. And it's strange that YouTube will take a video where you're talking about the rise of, say, white supremacy in America right now, like, well, the return of it rather, like the Charlottesville riots, and you're comparing them to what's going on in Germany and the Third Reich and stuff like that. Those will be demonetized, but someone openly insulting someone and harassing someone is absolutely fine by YouTube, and I don't understand that.
It's clearly the money. Alt-right hate speech YouTubers have become really, really popular. I consider kind of the dark side of YouTube. Every now and then I'll kind of come across them when they make some semi-rational kind of things, and it's like going down a rabbit hole if you just even start to look into it for a second. And they're really popular, really successful, and they keep going on about how there's a culture war going on and how they're being threatened by the liberals or feminists, or it's one of their main ways of getting views now.
It honestly, it's kind of embarrassing to even do that. Really, I mean, well, it is to me because I don't see the need, and I don't know. It pisses me off, honestly. Because I feel bad for Carlos Maza, excuse me, or anybody else. I mean, there are some right wing content creators I like, and I fully support what they have. Like Blair White, for example. I love Blair White. She's great. She's amazing, and I like what she says sometimes. I don't always agree with her. That's fine. I don't always agree with what Carlos Maza or somebody else says. Milo Stewart, whatever. I don't always agree with these people, but I do think that if you're going to allow people freedom of speech on your platform, but tell them that there are certain things not going to be allowed, God damn it, you need to enforce that. Okay? So, like, let's say the whole accusation against James Woods and other people on Twitter are being. No, not James Woods. Let's go with Turn the Frog's gay. What's his name?
What?
You know what I'm talking about? They're putting chemicals in the water to turn the frogs gay.
Oh, Alex Jones.
Yeah, Alex Jones. Fuck Alex Jones. Fuck him. Okay, I'll just be honest. Fuck the man. I'm glad that he's been deplatformed. I really am, and it's not because he's not entertaining to watch and make fun of. Has absolutely nothing to do with that. It's the fact that he is a conspiracy theorist who thinks that children were murdered by the government as a ploy to take guns away. He thinks that steel beams don't melt in fire. There's a lot of crazy. Well, actually, that was started by Mark Dice. Mark Dice has not been deplatformed yet, despite Mark Dice saying outlandish shit. But there's a difference in the way that Mark Dice says his crazy shit and the way that anyone else does it. And I'm kind of glad that Alex Jones has been deplatformed, because fuck him. Just get rid of him. People like that who are intentionally saying things that are actually hurting people need to be demonetized, deplatformed, whatever. But if you're using your freedom of speech to be actual freedom of speech, that's one thing. Hate speech and terrorizing innocent families because their kindergarten age children were murdered by a madman is not free speech.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problems with right-wing leaning people having their say on YouTube or whatever. I don't have a problem with people arguing their point of view. I have a problem when you're purposely using hate and falsifying information to start the basically pitchforks and torches a mob of people to just try to rile them up to get angry, because that's what the strategy is. Basically, they say something completely ridiculous, get people furious and angry, and then send them after the people that they're going after.
And what I think is even worse is, okay, a lot of people who sell ads have begun removing their ads from certain people, like on Fox, not Fox, not Vox.
And
you failed to hear me.
my opinion on that goes both ways, because there have been left-wing people that have done that to right-wing people too.
There are people on both sides, but I just can't believe I even said that, because it makes me think about Donald Trump, which is one thing I wanted to bring up. It's kind of a bizarre world that we live in right now, because and I'm going to play this for everyone at home. This is Laura Ingraham from Fox News telling her viewers that the words that the president says are fake news. Okay, and the background of this is that yesterday, with being anniversary of the D-Day landings in Normandy, he gave an interview with Fox News to Laura Ingraham, and I'll just play it.
Some of you may have heard or read that President Trump supposedly held up the entire D-Day ceremony in order to do this interview with me. That is patently false, fake news.
I'm holding them up because of this interview, but that's because it's you.
Some of you may have heard or read that President Trump supposedly held up the entire D-Day ceremony in order to do this interview with me.
I'm holding them up because of this interview, but that's because it's you.
That is patently false, fake news.
Yeah, very, very clearly says that he held up a ceremony to honor World War II veterans, to do the interview with her, and then she's like, it's fake news. The president didn't hold up the interview. Don't believe him.
So does this mean the timeline is fixed now?
I don't know, because the other day we were talking about how it seems like we're kind of like a bizarre world now, and I think we might
Captain
actually be
finally return the Infinity Stones.
I don't know. Possibly, yes, maybe. Maybe he did. Maybe he did not. I don't know.
I feel like this is the only explanation for something like this happening. Captain has traveled through time and returned the Infinity Stones.
See how we, went all that way around and finally got back to talking about Avengers?
Aren't you happy?
Yes, I kind of am. Yay, we talked about everything else, and now we're back to Avengers.
So, before we
Yay!
start, I just want you to admit that I was right years ago when I said that the MCU would be better than the DCEU.
I didn't say it was better. Nobody
You
did that.
said the DCEU would crush the MCU.
And it is, because DC is better. So, fuck off.
And yet, here we are, and the winner clearly is the MCU.
No.
I don't see your counterpoint other than just saying no.
Wonder Woman! Wonder Woman!
You don't even like that movie that much.
Actually, I really enjoyed the movie, except for it was too long.
It would have been so
Entirely
much better if it did not have that weird ending fight at the end.
Well, no, I'm fine with, that fight, but it took too damn long getting to it. And I think if you're going to have okay, there's a way to do a comic book movie and a way not to. And this is where the real difference is in DC and Marvel. Look at Marvel movies. They tend to be roughly hour and a half, not more than 2 hours on average. Okay? DC movies, on the other hand, tend to be over 2 hours. They even did that with like the Christian Bale Batman movies. They were fairly long. Justice League was like 2.5 hours long, something like that. Too long. Wonder Woman's about 2 hours. It's too long. It's too goddamn long. But it's fine with me, to do a movie that's feature length, which that's the word I was thinking. A feature length is like an hour and a half, 2 hours at most. If you can't tell your story within that time frame, people aren't going to like your movie, and that's why with Dawn of Justice, that was the problem that I had, and I do remember distinctly sitting in the movie theater because we had talked about this on the show before it came out. And I said something about how I didn't think they were going to have Batman's backstory. Like, we're not going to see, little Bruce Wayne finding the Batcave. We're not going to see his parents get shot. And that's how the movie started. Because I messaged you, and I'm like, God damn it, they're doing it.
I remember that because you were insisting that they weren't going to do the backstory. And we actually had an argument about it because I was insisting they needed to do the backstory. And I mean, I understood where you were coming from, but clearly they thought they needed to do the backstory.
Okay, here's the thing. If you want to put Batman's backstory in there, that's great. Give him a standalone movie, present that, do some build-up, and then go into how he is in whatever movie you're going to use him in. But here's the thing. Here's the reason I didn't think they were going to do it, and the reason I don't think it needed to be in the movie. Okay? Not only does everybody fucking know, everybody knows Batman's backstory. Just like Superman's. You don't need to see baby Superman. Well, you did for this one because that's where they started for the DCEU. But for Batman, they obviously went with a pre-established Batman. That's the way it was set up. Batman's has been being Batman for 20 years. He's 40-something years old at this point in time. Okay, we get it. He's an older Batman. He's seen some things, done some things. Why are you showing him as a child? It's not necessary.
And I actually agree with you on that. Like, I didn't think they really needed a Superman or Batman origin story, but I think it was a huge mistake on their part not to give the other heroes of the Justice League their own origin story.
Well, they did with
What they
Aquaman,
well,
and
yeah, but
Cyborg's is kind of
but
hinted at.
but the problem is they didn't do it until after Justice League. These movies should have been done before Justice League was a thing.
They should. But that's part of the DCEU's flaws. Is if you're going to go with pre-established characters, okay, they're pre-established. Do not do the origin. Okay, we have like I said, we have Batman being Batman for 20 years. That's fine. I love that idea. The whole thing where Bruce Wayne shows up in Metropolis and goes around being a badass. I love that. That was great. That's pre-established. You can tell he's doing offensive driving type stuff rather. Clearly he has some experience doing that. Somehow he learned how to keep a vehicle going as fast as possible and avoid obstacles and rescue people, That's cool. Stick with that. Okay? Like the Batman where he's climbed up on the wall and the people that are kidnapping the prostitutes, they weren't prostitutes; they were being sold in sex slavery. That's great. I love that. The warehouse fight, that was one of the best sequences in the whole movie to me. Leave it that. Just leave it at that. God damn it, leave it at that. It's like The Dark Knight Returns. You don't need to know Bruce Wayne's parents are murdered. What you need to know is this is an older Batman. He's been doing all this stuff for years. Leave it at that. Just leave it at that.
But they needed to know the name Martha.
Why did you say that name? Why did you say that name?
That was perfect. Thank you for that. But yeah. But no, we really should talk about Avengers Endgame because it deserves a full hour. We might need to do another show for this.
Probably because we're like at 45 minutes now. Not that we're keeping time, just.
But like,
actually,
there were so many great parts. I'm just struggling to figure out where to start with talking about it.
Well, see, just like the DCEU, you start at the beginning. And when you come to the end, you stop. Except they started at the end. They should have stopped there. Anyway, okay. So, obviously, spoiler warning is in effect for what we're going to talk about because, probably should have done like an obvious spoiler warning graphic on the screen Monday when we talked about Game of Thrones. However, I think what happened in Game of Thrones was probably like this is an arguably level of probably, but I think it was probably more spoiled and well known within 24 hours of it airing than anything within game. And that's incredible to me.
I was actually shocked at how little Endgame got spoiled for me, because I wasn't able to see the movie for a long time. And I have to give credit to moviegoers and Marvel fans. They did not spoil it for the most part. And it was
which is great.
Amazing.
It's just strange to me that movies like that, even the DCEU movies, even the Star Wars movies, anything like that, nobody spoils them immediately. But people will live tweet, like during Game of Thrones, because I did it a couple times. They'll live tweet, and they're like, "Oh man, oh!" they're freaking out over Twitter over these things, and that's why I don't think there was a need to actually do, like a big graphical spoiler warning for Game of Thrones, because if you are not aware of what happened, then I'm sorry. Like, I don't, okay, I always feel bad whenever I spoil something for somebody. Anything. But I really don't with Game of Thrones, because that night, before any episode would air, there's always, several thousand people saying, please don't spoil it. I'm gonna block anybody I see spoiling it. And then a minute into the show, people are going haywire talking about it. But they didn't do it with Endgame. And it's just this strange discrepancy in movies and TV shows, and I just don't personally understand how that happens. But since you can't think of things to talk about with Endgame, like specific things, I know of you.
I think it might be because with TV, most people are watching it at the same time, and with movies, people are often seeing it at very different times.
Well, see, okay, the reason I said that Game of Thrones completely spoiled with 24 hours is because less than that, like it was that Monday, after the series finale. No, I'm sorry, the penultimate one. No, yeah, the next to the last, where Daenerys had destroyed King's Landing, and you see Jaime and Cersei buried alive. You didn't know that? Oops, sorry. Elizabeth Warren was giving a talk, and she was talking about college debt being a burden. She said it was like being buried by rocks. And afterwards, the reporter was like, "Did you mean to ruin Game of Thrones that way?" And she kind of looked at him and goes, "Did you have that in mind when you answered the question?" And Elizabeth Warren says, "Well, yeah, I was thinking about it, but it's weird that someone got mad at her for talking about crushing debt, and the reason that this bothers me is not because I think that it's what she was doing, but that she was describing metaphorical debt.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have had a problem for doing that, but anyways, what was your favorite part of the movie?
Let's see. Okay, the thing with the comparison, I'm sorry, I had to stop and think. The thing with the comparison for me is that she wasn't trying to spoil it, obviously, and a lot of people did intentionally post spoilers. I don't know. It's weird. People reacted to it strangely.
I feel like that was
But
an overreaction.
it was definitely an overreaction. But okay, since you said you couldn't think of anything specific to talk about, I know specific things I want to talk about. First off, I want to talk about Captain Marvel. Okay, I love the movie. I don't know anybody who watched it who didn't like it, especially the Stan Lee tribute. That was beautiful. That was the best part of the movie to me. Excuse me. There are several people who have said that Captain Marvel, well, rather Brie Larson, who plays her, is a bitch, and they don't like her, and they think she's rude. And I watched a Charisma on Command video talking about her and how she reacts in interviews, and I can definitely see why she would annoy people, because it's her person. I'm not saying she's annoying. I'm not saying she's terrible, but they thought that her portrayal of Captain Marvel in this was not enjoyable because they had allowed her real life to color her, whereas I think she was letting the character kind of color herself in real life. If that makes any sense.
I have not been a fan of Captain Marvel in her standalone movie or in the Avengers. It's just she's so lifeless. She's so I I I mean, I get that she was supposed to be kind of lifeless because she has amnesia. She's trying to figure out who she is and stuff, but I it's so weird watching her. I'm just like, there feels like there's no joy in her playing that role, which is the opposite of almost every other Marvel character. Like when I watch the Marvel actors, I feel like all of them are genuinely enjoying being in that role. They want to be that character. Like it is the highlights of, well, maybe not the highlight of their career, but one of the highlights of their career. Like one of the most things that they have ever done. And I just don't get that with her.
I don't necessarily think that Brie Larson is a bad actress. She's great.
No, we know
But
she's a good actress.
she is. She definitely is. Because if you watch her in Kong Skull Island, she's amazing. I actually like her as a person. She's seems like a great human being. But watching her in the interviews, it's uncomfortable, and she does kind of seem hostile and sarcastic about everything, and that's why I think that the role impacted her more than her impacting the role. Like, for example, with Robert.
I get why she's so defensive because from the very beginning, from the very, very beginning, before anyone saw the movie or knew anything about it, people were going on and on about how this was feminist propaganda and she was
Oh yes,
a feminazi.
yes,
And
exactly the same thing that happened with Wonder Woman. And guess what? Wonder Woman was a great movie.
oh yeah, there is no doubt that Wonder Woman is 10 times better than Captain Marvel. But I understand why Brie was defensive from the beginning. I understand why has felt like she's being constantly attacked.
She probably is. In fact, I know she is. But I don't necessarily think that ruins the character, because I like her version of Captain Marvel. I thought she was very good at it. And there's a scene where Thor calls Stormbreaker to him. Stormbreaker. And it just kind of brushes past her, and she gets this adorable little smirk on her face. I like this one. I like that. It's cute, you know. And the reason that her portrayal of Captain Marvel works for me, like this stoic, I could rip your head off any point in time thing she has going on, is because as far as she is aware, she is the most powerful person in the Avengers lineup, and she arguably is.
She is. She is actually the most powerful hero out of all of them. The problem is that they don't do a good job of showing that outside of one or two big moments for her. They just she just flies in and does things and then flies off. That's the biggest problem I have with Captain Marvel. You don't get the character growth that you got with someone like Thor or Iron Man or Captain America, Black Widow, Gamora, the Wasp, Ant-Man.
See, it's interesting you bring up Thor, because Thor got a different reaction. I loved him. I thought Chris Hemsworth was fantastic in this. This is probably my favorite Thor movie. Well, not Thor movie. Movie with Thor in it.
This is my favorite portrayal of him because there was so much genuine emotion with him, and I know
There
he's still
was.
I know
There
he's
was.
still the comedic character and everything, but the depression portrayal was
It was
spot
accurate.
on.
It was. It really was. And I said, as someone, who I've mentioned it before, I deal with depression and anxiety all the time. That was perfect. The
And
whole
even
making and but the reaction he got was, oh, he's gotten fat. They're body shaming him. Okay, well, he did let himself go, and nobody else was aware of what was going on with him. They didn't know that he'd become a depressed alcoholic who stayed indoors and drank all the time. And it's not that I think they were doing it to be mean to him. It's that I think it was a shock because I've had people kind of make similar comments to me before about certain things like that. And
it wasn't body shaming; it was accurate. That's what happens when you have overwhelming depression and like anxiety and loss like that.
it is. And so the reason is
It's a
he felt
human portrayal.
it is. It really made him human. But then he makes up for that, by being a badass. And there's contention over him calling Mjolnirs to him from the past. I don't personally care. I think it's great because it leads to something else that's wonderful. It's amazing. And this is why we spoiled it.
It is my favorite part of the movie, what you're talking about.
Are
Especially
you sure?
because I was wearing a Captain America hoodie when I went.
Okay, well, since we're talking about that, we always have to talk about Thanos. I felt bad for Thanos in a lot of ways. Because you see him, on another planet, he's, seriously injured from the snap. But when you see him, he's basically retired, and the Avengers come and kind of mess everything up for him. It's like, oh, I realize he's killed, half of all living things, and that's terrible, and it really is terrible. But how do you think he feels now? It's like this, he thought this would solve all the world's problems, and now he's alone. He didn't have anybody. He's alone.
I mean, I get he was in a pitiable position, but there's no. I didn't feel any pity for him, really. It felt more to me like he was like a Nazi war criminal, basically. That's
Yeah.
and
He was like Joseph Mengele.
I, I'm sorry, but I just can't feel pity for them. Like I was happy when 4 killed him.
I don't necessarily pity him. I just feel bad for him as a person because, like I said, he is now alone. And I think him having retired and been there by himself, and having realized, well, I killed everything, well, half of every living thing, and then him using the stones in a second snap to destroy the stones so it couldn't be reversed, even he can't bring back anyone he cares about. You know what I mean?
But
And of course to get it.
But I don't know if he learned a lesson really. Like it felt like he felt like he did the right thing to him. It still felt to me like he was justified in his actions. And
that's why I'm saying he was now alone, because he had to murder the one thing. He murdered Gamora, the one thing he loved. And I think what really messes with it is that the MCU does not have the personified death in it that the comics do. And that's where the big difference with Thanos is with me. And that's why I feel bad for him in this. He doesn't seem to have the motivation to do it other than, I just want to kill every, half of all living things because that will end suffering and hunger and yada, 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 yada. But in the comic books, he had a motivation. He was in love. And he was in love with Lady Death, which is the personified version of death. So to impress her, he kills half of all living things. That makes him far more dangerous and far less likable to me, because that outright is a murderer. It's not like, and then with you mentioning Nazi war criminals, it's not like, they're like with what the Nazis did with the Jews.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I mean? Like, that was because they blamed the Jews for everything. Like, there's at least a reasoning for that.
but I
And
feel
I'm,
like
I'm,
it's
I'm
a
and I'm
very,
not. I'm
I feel like it's a very similar reasoning. It's like, if we just get rid of these people, we'll fix all of the problem. Like, it's a very similar line of
it
thought
is
to me.
similar, but at least Hitler had a motivation for it. He hated the Jewish people. He did. And the problem is, if you read Mein Kampf, he outright says that. That was the way in Munich when he moved there. That's how people were. There was a lot of anti-Semitism, and that just built up. And he began to have this theory that the Jews ran the world. It was terrible. That's the way he was. He was a bigot. Okay, Thanos didn't have that. Thanos just wanted to end suffering in the universe, so he kills tons of people. There's literally no motivation there other than an opinion that he has that
Well,
he thinks it's better. But
I
the
would say
reality is,
that they establish his motivation in Infinity War when they go to his planet and he shows the Avengers that are there what happens when what he thinks they didn't listen to him. And he wants to prevent that from happening again. That's his motivation.
I don't know. Like, I don't think that they wrote Thanos as well as he should have been. And I realize this is my opinion, you know, and everything is always about perspective. But I I just personally feel that if they had kept that one thing from the comics, other than, well, I think killing half of everything living will make things better, you know, if he had done it for trying to impress Death, that seems like more of a threat, because how many more people will he kill to make Death love him if half of all living things doesn't work? Like, how much further is he willing to go? How much more of a genuine Mad Titan will he be
I,
if, you know what I mean?
I get that, but I also think that it's scarier when someone is willing to. Well, when people are motivated by what we perceive as good intentions, because good intentions can lead to very, very dark paths, which happened there. And I think that's actually what makes Thanos more scary in the MCU than in the comics. Like, I find him genuinely more scary here because he's arguing with reason, he's arguing with logic, he's trying to appeal to the heroes, not just like, I'm going to do this. He's like, he's almost like, join me, which is not perhaps like, oh, this guy is evil, scary, but it's more of a how he's so.
It's like you said, it's a little bit too founded in reality. And honestly, having read Mein Kampf, having, studied quite a bit of history, the idea of someone essentially trying to form a cult mentality around themselves, that just doesn't I mean, it's not scary when I realize, and I really hate to even use the example, but the cult of personality around Donald Trump, that doesn't bother me as much as someone just saying, I'm going to kill indiscriminately because I have the ability to do it.
I
Because I
I
want something from doing that.
I
And that's
completely
what
disagree
comic
with
book
you.
Thanos is.
And I completely disagree with you on that. I think the cult-like mentality is far scarier because people will respond to "I'm going to kill indiscriminately." They will, rise up to defend against that very quickly. But if you try to use logic or reasoning or you know try to appeal to people in some ways, you can do far more damage, far more lasting and reaching evil things than you could if you were just like, I'm going to kill indiscriminately.
You can't.
So, I mean, I find Thanos far more scary in the MCU than I do in the comics. And I was genuinely really pleased and really happy when Ford just straight up chomped its head off. I was just like, yes. Thank you.
Okay, well, see, part of my reasoning is, I don't know if you ever watched any of the Purge movies, but actually, better yet, the Belko experiment. This is a better example of the Purge movies, okay? The Belko experiment basically is an idea to see how far someone will go with the right motivation, okay? It's far worse than the cult mentality, because cult mentalities can always be countered. We know this. We know this. Like, it happens all the time. Hitler was defeated. Napoleon was defeated. Stalin dies.
Wait. No. Wait a minute. We defeated all of those people, but how much easier would it have been to beat them if they had just been like, I'm going to kill indiscriminately?
A
How
lot
much
harder.
faster?
A lot harder. Hang on.
How
There's a
much
reason.
faster would the war have ended if the Allies realized, oh, Hitler is crazy and he's going to conquer us all? We need to band together now and fight him.
Okay, but this is why I'm saying look at the Belko experiment, okay? The basic premise is employees are trapped in their office building and they're given X amount of time to kill somebody or they will be killed. There is the only motivation they have is survival. The world has to become better for them because they have to kill every fucking thing in their way to survive. That's the whole point of the movie, okay? And at the end of the movie, spoiler alert for this, by the way, you find out that the nameless faceless people doing this are conducting multiple experiments like this. That is far more dangerous because how far can you motivate a single individual to do something in order for them to live? That's why comic Thanos seems far more dangerous to me than the movie one. Yeah, the movie idea is great. He's a cult. He's a Nazi. Woohoo! Daenerys Targaryen was a Nazi. Quit making comparisons to real life figures. Do something that's more frightening. The comic book was. The idea is he's doing it to impress death. He has the motivation. He literally has the motivation of getting death to love him. A living being that is known as death. He's in love with death. He's murdering people because he loves death. Like, that is the closest comparison I have for that is the Philippines War that the United States conducted in the late 19th century. There were cultists. Okay, they were devoted. I forget the name of the deity it was, but they got so worked up into a frenzy that the United States had to devise a new caliber of gun, the 45 caliber. In fact, to stop them. That's the reason it was called the Man Killer. They became so enraged on drugs and devotion to their god. It was a god of death, basically. That you couldn't defeat them. They would just keep coming at you, and so a new handgun was devised that would stop them, and it stopped them in one shot. And it would, just outright kill them. How far scarier is it that something is coming after you just because they are not going to stop, because it's either they're going to kill you or you're going to kill them. It's literally life and death. And that's what comic book Thanos was. It was, I'm going to kill half of every living thing because I'm in love with death. Yeah, you can, just like I said, you can stop Hitler, Napoleon, anybody else like that wants to rule the world because they have an opinion about things. That happens all the time. But when it comes to, like, for example, let's say ISIS. ISIS is not a cult personality. ISIS is a group of fucking fanatics. They're devoted to a cause. And everyone's like, well, we're beating ISIS. We're beating ISIS. Yeah. Problem is, every time you kill one of them, their family members get upset. You see what I'm talking about? They want people to become martyrs. They want that.
They're more cult. I mean, cultists and fanatics are very similar to me.
They are, but they're different. And that's why so many people were afraid of ISIS. Because of that threat, because of the martyrdom aspect to it. They're going to sacrifice themselves to draw you in. And that's how they did it. That's literally how they did it. It's kind of the same thing with people who commit mass shootings. They're motivated by seeing death. And it appeals to them on a level that you cannot rationalize. There is in fact no rationalizing with death. You can't talk death out of leaving you alone. And Thanos is so willing to embrace that he's in love with death itself. So that's why I think what they should have done, instead of having, oh, well, we just miss our family and friends, well, we'll never be able to live that way, yada, yada, yada. Why not have him have a literal reason for it? Because that sets up a far more powerful force, something behind him, death. There's your new enemy to fight one day, like a cosmic entity that is so powerful that none can ever escape. But that's terrifying. That's real terror to me.
I completely disagree with you. I'm like,
and you're allowed to. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's just what I think is scary. It's you're fighting against death, not just some guy who's like, well, come join me. I want to kill things because I have an idea. And the reality is that I'm wrong, and that's why. Well, see, here's the thing. That's why when past Thanos comes to the future, that's why he sits there and he tells them that I now know what I've done wrong. I'm going to have to kill everything. That's where movie Thanos becomes legitimately scary to me, because he realizes, yeah, I can't just kill half of everything. I have to kill everything and then remake everything. But
and I think that is genuinely from his cultist approach to his mission. Like, a cult is willing to go to fanatical lengths easily to achieve what they want. And when he sees that his plan did not work the way he wanted it to, he realized he needs to up his game more. And I think that's true of any cult or thing in history. And it always came to the point where people are like, okay, they finally crossed the line. We can't allow this. And
okay, but that's where the movie goes with it. They get to that point where he was in the comic books, and the initial version that's why it wasn't so impressive to me, and that's why you have that big fight, and that's where all the Avengers come back because they bring them back, and it's great, it's cool, it's awesome, and that's when you get some amazing shit like Captain America wielding Mjolnir. That's great. Finally, he's worthy.
you mean
Yay!
the greatest moment in movie history?
Yeah, they agree. Yeah, it really was. It really was. See, we can agree on things. We can do
Amazing.
this. We can do this.
No, I sort of had it ruined for me slightly because I saw it in the spoiler talk pop up in the bottom right of my screen for our Discord for the guild, and it said, "Oh, and Camp was wielding the hammer and shield." And as soon as someone said that, I knew what they meant. But it really didn't ruin the moment for me. Like, I was just so overfilled when I saw it because they hinted at it so long ago. And I know that in the comics he has wielded the hammer before. And I was like, are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? Are they going to do it? And then it happens, and I was just like, yes.
I knew about it before I saw it. It didn't ruin for me. It's like Han Solo being killed in Force Awakens. I knew about it. It didn't ruin it for me. Like it still kind of shocked me. I'm like, oh, damn, patricide.
And
Yeah.
I love Four's reaction too. Like, that was
I knew it.
that was the greatest reaction, especially because he has like that axe like going into his chest, and he's still so happy.
And see, here's the thing: that extra layer of fat paid off because Thanos didn't kill him right away. Oh, look at that! I made a fat joke.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
No, I shouldn't be because I got a fat pass. I'm a big person. I can make those jokes.
But really, seeing Cap just stand up to not just Thanos, but he was ready to fight literally everything for as long as he could, with no hope of any backup. Like, Thor and Iron Man were down. He didn't know about anyone else, and he just got up and was ready to keep on fighting. And I think that was really the moment that made the movie for me personally.
All I know is it was a good movie, and I'm looking forward to the next Spider-Man and everything else.
I'm really curious what they're going to do now, because I've seen a lot of rumors about the next Spider-Man that they're going to use him to introduce some other properties. Like
Well,
I know there's rumors Deadpool's going to be in Spider-Man.
We know that Mysterio is in there, and we know that Thanos opened a world, or excuse me, opened like a rift to other versions of reality. So there's the multiverse for you right there.
And Spider-Man is one of the biggest players in multiverse things, and that's why I'm really curious what they're going to do. Because are they going to? Because I don't know if you've seen the cartoon, the Into the Spider-Verse movie. Have you?
Actually, no, I haven't seen that yet.
It is great. It is arguably the best Spider-Man movie ever. In a
Even better than Spider-Man 3
don't do that. But no,
with emo Spider-Man.
they actually made a joke about that in that movie, and it was great.
Actually, of those 3 movies, I would say the third one was the best one because of the Sandman. That's the only reason.
the Sandman actually was the sad thing about Spider-Man 3 is it had potential. Like you can see parts of a good movie in there, but I really don't like it, for obvious reasons. But you can see that there was the potential for a good Spider-Man movie. But no, Into the Spider-Verse is an amazing, amazing Spider-Man movie. It's one of the best. It rivals the Batman animated movies, I think.
Impossible.
And you really need to see it. But one of the coolest fun things they did was they brought in a bunch of the different versions of Spider-Man from the different universes. So,
Well, don't spoil it for me. I haven't seen it yet.
well, no, I mean that's the whole premise of it. But
But
and they bring in some really funny, kind of humorous, ridiculous ones. They bring in some ones from the future, from the past.
well, okay. I can tell you what. How about we talk about that on Monday, and I'll just watch it over the week.
Yeah, no, but what I was trying to get at was
But Nick,
they could do this with
Nick,
Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Nick,
They could bring in a
Nicholas,
lot of different things.
Nick.
But
I'm saying let's talk about Spider-Man on Monday.
well, we also need to talk about other things too.
Well, yeah, but we argued about Thanos
Like
for like 20 minutes.
how awful Dark Phoenix is.
Haven't seen it yet.
Have you seen what people are saying about it?
Nope, don't particularly care.
Yeah, that'll be a fun discussion.
They kind of lost my interest after the last one. I'm sorry. I mean, Apocalypse is easily one of my favorite X-Men villains, and that was not Apocalypse.
Well, the reason I
wasn't impressed.
The reason I bring it up is because it's such a fun comparison of ending a series, like a comic book arc thing, comparing Dark Phoenix to Endgame, because they're such. One is an amazing masterpiece, the other is a train wreck.
My thing is how come Jean Grey gets to be in like one movie and then immediately she turns to Phoenix? Just come on. Hold off for a little while. God damn it. Just give her some time. Let her work up to that. Let it, just gradually come into being, But
a lot of people are saying it's because Disney bought Fox, and this was the last Fox attempt at an X-Men movie. So they wanted to try to get X-Men Last Stand right. But they failed.
I don't know. Anyway, I'll watch the Spider movie and that over the weekend, and we can talk about it Monday. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess this is that'll be it for today, I guess. Right? You think so?
I think so. But we still need to talk about more things from Endgame.
Well,
because Endgame.
Well, maybe, possibly. So, yeah, I guess we're going to end the show here for now. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. You for watching at home. If you watch this on Twitter or Twitch, thank you for tuning in live. But yeah, like us on YouTube. Follow. Well, it's my Twitter. So you have to follow me. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to us on Twitch, and go to our Patreon and give us your money, because YouTube is mean to us, and Nicholas has gotten us demonetized.
It's all my fault.
It is. It's entirely your fault.
It's not like I warned you about things.
No, you never did that. Anyway, see you all on Monday.
Goodbye, everybody.